All right. I'm Peter Alessandria, and for the next 90 minutes, I invite you to be bigger than you think you are. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. Let's take a look at our agenda for this evening. So as usual, we're going to start with some announcements. Then we'll do our recommended reading, which tonight is a recommended recommended watching. I'll come back to our affirmation of the day, then some introductions and victories. It's an opportunity for anybody who's new to introduce themselves, or if you'd like to share a victory or a celebration from the past week, you'll have an opportunity to do that. We will listen to an excerpt from Chapter 7 of my audiobook, second edition of Be Bigger Than You Think You Are. Come back, do a topic discussion, take a break at about 8:15, probably more like 8:30. Then come back and work on the assignment for tonight, do some Q&A, and wrap it up by 9 o'clock. A reminder that today's workshop is being recorded and will be available on the BeBiggerToday.com website and YouTube channel within the next 48 hours. Please feel free to stop your video and mute your microphone if you do not wish to be seen or heard on the recording. Author signed first edition paperbacks of Be Bigger Than You Think You Are. I have a couple of copies left. This might be your last opportunity to get them and save 20% by using the code workshop20 at checkout at bebiggertoday.com/book. While you're there, check out my New York City photo book, New York Cityscapes. This is a collaboration between myself and 6 other New York City area photographers. We each have our own unique take on the Big Apple, on the landmarks and the skyline that make New York City so great. So check it out on my website, bebiggertoday.com/bookstore. You get your copy for $16.95 while it's on sale. We also have merch, hats and t-shirts. Save 20% by using the discount code merch20 at checkout at bebiggertoday.com/merch. And you can also see some of my original art and photography, my original landscape, cityscape, and abstract images. These are professionally framed, gallery-wrapped canvas prints, available again on my website, bebiggertoday.com/art-photography. And here's a little commercial for you guys. Peter's photos and abstract designs are uniquely beautiful, one-of-a-kind works of art. These gallery-wrapped canvas prints are set in a contemporary shadow box floating frame and will enhance the beauty of any home or office. Available in 4 different sizes, each piece is professionally framed and comes complete and ready to hang. Frames are available in your choice of black, white, or brown, and each is signed by the artist. Peter's original art and photography will make a great gift for a client, for yourself, or someone you love. Order yours today. So again, those are my beautiful, professionally framed, gallery-wrapped canvas prints. And I also have refrigerator magnets to go along with them. These are my original photographs on refrigerator magnets, collection of 11. This is from a collection of souvenirs. You can get yours at bebiggertoday.com/merch. My most recent podcast, What's the Different Podcast on the US-UK network. I had a great conversation with Tom and David on overcoming our limiting thoughts and beliefs and being bigger than we think we are, oddly enough. Check it out. Go to my website, bebiggertoday.com. Look for this image. Click on it, and it will take you to the podcast. I'm available for one-on-one coaching and or corporate consulting. If you're a creative person, a writer, a photographer, an artist, or if you have a company or work for a company and would like me to come in and speak to your management team or your sales team on how they can be bigger than they think they are, please reach out to me through the website at bebiggertoday.com. And I am still accepting donations. I'm looking for support to continue to offer the workshop at no charge and keep it open to everyone. We have a suggested donation of $5 per week or $20 per month. you can send your contribution to me at paypal.me/Peter Alessandria, all one word. Thanks so much for your support. All right, so tonight we have a recommended watching. This is not actually a book, although actually it is a book. You Were Born Rich by Bob Proctor is a book that's available. But I'm recommending that you watch the 6-part YouTube seminar series that's available on the, I guess it's Proctor Gallagher Institute YouTube channel. The link to the YouTube video is in the description there. And you may or may not be familiar with Bob Proctor. I actually was not very familiar with him. I do remember him from the movie The Secret, and I knew he was a motivational speaker. I knew he worked a lot in the business world and all of that. So actually just a couple of days ago, I stumbled upon this series of videos. It's a total of 9 hours, and it takes you through a 2-day seminar that he presented probably back in the late 90s, and I think it was 1998. Definitely worth watching. And what I like about Bob Proctor is that he combines law of attraction, he combines kind of a metaphysical take with practical business, sales, strategies, and advice. And so very energetic guy. He's got a very interesting story. Actually, let me tell you about his story here. So Bob Proctor, he went from down and out to changing the world. He started by reading Think and Grow Rich in 1961. And the story that he tells, he was about 27 years old. He was hanging out in bars. He was not making any money. His life was basically a mess. And he found that book, and that kind of launched him on a whole new life for himself. He studied the law of attraction material and the human potential movement in the late 60s, early 70s. And he studied with some of the greatest minds the world has ever known, including Earl Nightingale and Lloyd Conant. He ended up becoming a world-renowned speaker, teacher, and expert on the mind, human potential, and success. He helps millions through all his work, including the hit movie The Secret, that I think was shown, that came out in 2006, as well as his New York Times best-selling book, You Were Born Rich, his coaching programs, and live events, live seminars. So you can find out more at the proctorgallagherinstitute.com. But I really do recommend just taking a look at this. It's, as I said, it's 6 parts. I found the combination of true stories from people that he's worked with who achieved success, to his take on the law of attraction, to his take on the power of the mind and our relationship to something greater, our relationship to our source and how that empowers us, and how we can use that power for positive in our own lives and the lives of others. And his basic business sense, his business ethic, and all of that. I think it's pretty compelling. So check it out. They do have a whole YouTube channel. There's numerous other videos there if you don't want to invest 9 hours or even an hour and a half in the first one. But I definitely think it's worth checking out. So either go to his website, proctorgallagherinstitute.com, or go to the YouTube channel. So our affirmation of the day. So here's a little wisdom from Facebook. No one can steal your thunder when you're the storm. So be the storm. I really like that. I actually saw that this morning. So, nobody can steal our thunder. Nobody can take credit for our hard work. Nobody can throw us off our game. No one can intimidate us. Nobody can overpower us, overwhelm us, defeat us when we're the storm. So what is that? That's focusing on me, not giving my attention, not giving my power away, not giving my power away to what other people are doing or not doing, saying or not saying. Be the storm, be the center of your own life, and don't let other people throw you off your center. And then the other one that I put on the affirmation of the day today is, and this was from Bob's seminar, his webinar, the me I see is the me I'll be. All right. So what is that? So I've been saying from day one, the most important question we can ask ourselves is, who do you think you are? How do you see yourself? What thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions do you hold about you? These are the most important questions we can ask, especially in a situation that challenges us. Because whoever we think we are is exactly who we're going to end up being in life. And it's actually the only thing that we have control over. Our thoughts, our beliefs, our feelings, our perceptions, and our actions and reactions. So who do you think you are? How do you see yourself? The me I see is the me I'll be. So I better start paying attention to how I see myself, who I think I am, because that's who I'm going to end up being in my life. It's my contention, and actually this was great because I had never heard this in anybody else's material until I watched that YouTube video, Bob Proctor's YouTube video. It's my contention that it's impossible to act in a way that's inconsistent with our predominant thoughts and beliefs about ourselves. So if my predominant thought about myself is I'm not good enough, I don't have what it takes, they're not going to like me, I can't get ahead, things never work out for me, then guess what? That's going to be my experience. My expectations, my beliefs, my expectations ultimately create my experience. And if I want to know what I believe about myself, if I want to know how I see myself, if I want to know who I think I am, all I got to do is look at my life. Look at the things I have or don't have, possessions and all that. Look at the relationships I have or don't have. Look at the physical health I have or don't have, the relationship I have with myself, my family. All of that stuff is a reflection of who I think I am, which is actually really good news. It's feedback. It's like, so instead of being angry at somebody because I don't like the way they're treating me, I look at, okay, what is it about me? How did I put myself in this position in the first place? What is it about me that attracted this situation or this person? Not to beat myself up, not to make myself wrong, but to notice that certain beliefs and expectations must be in effect to attract that situation into my life. And then what do I need to change about how I see myself, who I think I am, to change that experience, to change that situation, to make more money, to have a better job, to have a better house. So I'm sharing this with you guys for my benefit, because I'm looking around my life probably more than ever, and there's definitely some things that are great, and I love, and I want to acknowledge myself because I've come a long way. And there's also some things that I could see, oh, okay, got to pay a little more attention to how I see myself, who I think I am, what's the vibe I'm putting out, what are my expectations, what am I accepting that may be unacceptable from other people or from the situations I'm in. So this is all about taking responsibility for our lives. This is all about being proactive, being the creator rather than reactor. Remember, we talked about this in chapter 4. We can either be reactors or we can be creators. And it's the same word, but when we see the letter C correctly, we move the letter C, we move from being reactors to creators. And we create our lives. We own our power, and we manifest what we want in our lives. So this is the time for introductions and victories. It's an opportunity for people to introduce themselves if they're new, or to share a victory or celebration from the past week. So who would like to kick us off? All right, Dee Dee's going to be right back, I think. Barb, did you want to check in?
Yeah, I want to say hi. And I laugh because Victories, I don't want to sound like Debbie Downer, when I come on. That's why I want to run away. Victories, victories. I don't know, Peter. I'm having a hard time. I think I told you that last week. But I'm working on it. So there's the victory. I mean, I'm working on it. Every day I'm having a hard time, but yet I put all the the pieces in place. Like, like you're saying, who do you think you are? You're better than this. Why you do, So I get through the day, but I'm struggling. So I don't know what to say. It all has to do with me. Maybe this is something that I have to go through, and then I can finally throw it away, put it in the garbage. Because you keep on saying, you're doing better, you're doing better. So I'm obviously working on it. I'm just having a really hard time. And I recognize it's because of the way I feel about myself. Okay. So that is the bottom. That's all I need. So it's good. Life became simpler. That can be my, I don't know what you would call that, not my mantra, but that's what it's all about, is how you feel about yourself. And why do you feel so anxious? Why do you feel always so like you can't take care of yourself and you're not good and you're not, all that stuff. I understand that it came from the past. So, that's what I'm dealing with every day.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you're struggling, and I can relate. I'm sure other people can relate too.
Yeah.
So we could talk about it now. We could talk about it later. If the only thing I will say, well, one thing I will say is I can see it in my own life. And actually, again, this YouTube seminar, I mean, it was actually pretty good.
Yeah. Okay.
Bob was talking about the fact that when we have a crisis, it's usually a good sign that there's a real change coming, especially when we're not acting out in the old ways. I mean, in the old days, I would create crises for myself, but it would just sink me deeper into a hole. Whereas now, because I'm actively working on myself, I'm more conscious, I'm more aware. I don't act out in the same way I used to. When I hit one of those walls, and I've had that actually the last couple of weeks, when I come through that, it's always to a higher level. So I would suggest that, maybe you're going to shake off some of this stuff now from the past. And sometimes, it's like, when we spend 20, 30, 40 years with a mindset, with an attitude, with an emotional predisposition, when that starts to come off, it's not pleasant. We're going to talk about tonight, not directly in this context, but I mentioned back, I think it was in chapter 2 or chapter 3, the loss of our identity, the loss of a sense of identity. See, one of the problems with changing who we think we are is we're letting go of an old identity of ourselves. And that can be frightening. That can cause anxiety because we don't know, because as miserable as I am, at least I know who I am, or at least I think I know who I am, or it's familiar. Whereas when I start to let go of those old habit patterns, those old personality characteristics, those old ways of interacting with other people, it's like I'm losing an identity. An example that I give, I think in tonight's reading, is, if I've spent the last 30 years relating to certain people in my life with anger, with control, with manipulation, with judgment, if I forgive them, that means letting go of all of that stuff. And now I have to find a new way to interact with people. And I don't know who I am anymore. Who would I be without my anger? Who would I be without my judgment or my need to control, or all that stuff that I've been relying on for the last 30, 40, 50 years to get through life. So when we let that go, when we begin to let that stuff go, especially if our ego is still predominant in our personality, the ego doesn't like that. The ego does not want to be, in recreation mode, in limbo in terms of its identity, and it's very used to reacting and acting in certain ways. And when we start to dismantle that, it can be very unsettling. So I don't know if that's what you're experiencing or not, but I would say, for me at least, I think it's encouraging, because if and when you get through this, I think you're going to come out at a much higher level.
Right. And everything you're saying is exactly true. All right. I do have a situation. You know me, I've been going to Block Island for like 30 years, right? So on and off. So I'm going to go, on Sunday. And we were going to go last year with my other sister. And then because of COVID, we canceled. So we're going to go. And I'm having a total, I'm just losing it. I want to cancel it. I don't want to go. I don't want to do it. This is why I'm saying to you, all of a sudden I'm seeing, okay, what is it about you, Barbara? And what it is that I'm changing. And I don't want to control it anymore. I don't want to judge it anymore. I don't want to have to do it all anymore. She's still in that mode, but I don't. So I was going to cancel it. I didn't. But I did speak to her. I told her, I said, I'm having a lot of anxiety about it. She's like, oh, we're going to have fun. I said, fine. I said, I was always in control. I was always the one doing things, I said, I can't do that anymore. I'm going to rely on you. And she was like, fine. I want to just stop all that nonsense and just relax. And so she understood. So we're going on Sunday. We'll see how it goes. And it's
that actually sounds pretty good.
It does. Of course. It's paradise. I mean, it's a place that I find is heaven.
No, I'm not talking about Block Island. I said it sounds pretty good because you communicated what would work for you in this situation.
Yes, I did.
That's huge.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, again, I can't speak for you, but normally I don't say anything. And I just expect them to be different. I just expect them to read my mind, and then I get pissed off when they don't.
All right. So that's what I'm saying. I'm going through this evolution. I'm changing. Right. I'm saying things I want to say, not the stupid things I think I used to say. All right. So I'm changing, and I know I am. It's just very difficult. And as you put it, of course it's going to be painful. It's that or don't do it, right? And it was almost like my trip. It's that, go there where you want to go, or don't do it. And then what have you got? So.
Well, I would suggest, okay, so maybe it doesn't have to be one extreme or the other.
Oh, okay. No
maybe
extreme.
Well, this is something I found out many years ago when I got into recovery for codependency. I had to live in the gray as opposed to the black and the white, which means being open to maybe there's some middle ground. It's not all or nothing, And so again, I want to acknowledge you. You set some boundaries. You said, this is what works for me. This is what doesn't work for me. Which is huge. And then you get to respect your own boundaries, which it sounds like what you're doing. And then it's, two things too. I don't want to get too personal involved in your story, but I noticed that as I change, other people change how they relate to me. And it sounds like, if I recall correctly, you and your sister had a pretty good experience recently, where she really came in, she really helped you out, she was there for you in a way when you needed her. And when we change our expectations of other people, again, not always, but in my experience, they will often change to meet those expectations. See, when I change how I see myself, I change how I see other people. And when I change how I see other people, they change how they act in my presence. I can't really explain it. It's kind of this weird thing, but actually I can explain it, but I'm not going to go there now. But, as I see people in a new way, they meet those new expectations. So if I have a positive expectation about somebody or an experience or whatever, This is also in chapter, again, you may want to look at chapter 3, setting an advance intention.
Okay.
An advance intention is before we have any kind of an event. It could be positive, but if we know in the past it's been a difficult or challenging situation, write down in advance how you want that to go. How do you want that experience to go? And most importantly, who do you want to be in that situation? And write it down. And then come back to it, and look at it again, and then change it if you want to, whatever. But keep it top of mind. And what happened, because typically what I do, and again, I believe this is true of a lot of people, we don't set an advanced intention. We show up, and then we judge other people, we judge the situation, and we end up making everybody wrong because it didn't live up to our expectations. But we didn't really have any expectations. We certainly didn't communicate effectively what our expectations might be to other people. We didn't do any of the inner work where we had a picture in our own mind. And again, Bob Proctor talks all about this, having a clear image of what it is that we want to experience, what it is we want to create. This is what's involved in taking responsibility for our lives. I have to make sure now that every experience, every situation that I enter into voluntarily, I've got to make sure that it works for me. I can't continue to blame everybody else when I'm unhappy because they didn't live up to my expectations.
Well, my questioning was, why am I doing this? I felt like to give me peace of mind, I didn't want to go. I don't want to do it. Why should I do this? Why should I suffer through this? Why should I worry about it? Why should I have anxiety about it? Why should I care? I just didn't want to do it. And I couldn't, I worked, like you say, the victory, I had to live with that. It's so unpleasant to go through that in days. I got through it. It was,
So again, the situation is never the problem. What's the problem?
I did say that.
The problem is how I see myself in that situation. Yes. So how are you seeing yourself in this situation? Maybe, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Actually, I'm not going to, you tell me, how are you seeing yourself in this situation? To have that reaction.
The bottom line is I wasn't feeling very good about myself. End of discussion. We could get into many, many different ways, but that's what it was. And to not feel good about yourself is just not being bigger than you want to be.
But in what way did you not feel good about yourself?
I just felt I couldn't do it. It was too much for me.
Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. So too much meaning what? I can't handle somebody else's reactions. I can't handle somebody else's personality. It's going to be.
No, I think it was all me. No, I think it was all me. I can't handle my reactions. I can't handle my personality. I can't handle my issues. No, I was not blaming anybody else. I was blaming me, Peter. It was all me. Oh, all me. I didn't want anything to do with me.
All right. Well, this is good. We can talk more.
Okay.
But, remember, responsibility is not the same as.
What? Responsibility is not the same as, I don't know.
Starts with a B. You just said it. Blame.
Bigger? Wait, what?
Blame. Responsibility is not the same as blame.
Okay.
So you can be responsible for your reactions. You can be responsible for your personality, for your emotions and all of that without blaming yourself, without making yourself wrong.
Well, that's what, yes. So there you go. So that's what I guess I'm really working on, because speaking it out loud now, I see it. I even see it clearer, because it's funny because you said, all right, maybe I'm past the, blaming and having all sorts of issues with other people. Now I have it with myself. I'll work on that.
Well, it's good news because we can't control other people.
No, we can't. So that is good news.
But we always have a choice. What's true power? True power is the ability to consciously choose and or change our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions.
Yeah.
Well, we always have that ability.
Okay.
So it's good news. You can't change anybody else's thoughts, feelings, words, and actions, but we can change our own.
Right. And I didn't care about their thoughts, feelings, and actions. I cared about my own, and I didn't like myself. So I was like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go with myself. It wasn't her, it was me. Yeah.
All right, well, that's good. So
All right.
you're learning to have a relationship with yourself.
Well, if that's what it is, boy, it's tough.
Can I love myself when I least like who I'm being?
That's what you have said. Yes. Yes.
That's one of my definitions of unconditional love or
Yeah.
true love. Am
All
I
right.
willing? Am I willing to love myself when I least like who I'm being?
Okay. So then this trip is going to be for me learning to love myself. It has nothing to do with my sister, the people out there, the person. It all has to do with me. And it's good. I'll come out the other end. I'll come out when it's over much better. I needed to know what to do with this. I needed to know why this was going on. And now I guess you helped me. I guess I can figure it out. All I was stuck in total panic and fear.
And good affirmations. What are some good affirmations? I can express my feelings in a way that doesn't hurt myself or others. I can handle my own emotions.
Right.
I can be my own best friend. I can take care of myself. I can be my own best friend instead of my own worst enemy.
Got to do all those things. Yep.
I'm learning to forgive myself when I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
My anxiety, don't say my anxiety.
Yeah.
We don't want to own that stuff. This is a big thing I have with health conditions. We don't want to say my diabetes. Never say that. You don't want to own that. You don't want to make that part of your personality. Just say, the anxiety I experience is a message. It's I'm not sure what the right word is. It's giving me information about how I can change to be more effective, to be more loving towards myself. In other words, the anxiety is a signal that I need to adjust something.
Okay.
So make friends with the feelings. And remember, the feelings are never the problem. All right? It doesn't feel good to have anxiety or fear or whatever, but the problem comes when we make choices and decisions based on those feelings, those negative feelings. And it sounds like you almost made a choice or decision based on the anxiety.
Yes.
I bet you're going to have a great time this weekend.
I bet so too. Yes, I think so.
I know how much you like it out there.
Yes.
I bet it's going to be wonderful.
Yes.
This is really silly comparison, but I had a situation last weekend. I want to be careful what I say or how I say it. I had somebody come in and do some work for me, and I was concerned about not being able to control how they were doing or what they were doing, and it having negative ramifications for me. And I was so worked up about it, and I was going over and over in my head about how I was going to enforce my boundaries and keep and control them and all this other stuff. And it turned out I didn't need to do any of that. I was able to communicate just like you did. I was able to communicate what was going to work for me and what was not going to work for me and how I wanted things done because I was paying for a service. This is how I want it done. But I didn't have to, it wasn't a fight. It wasn't a battle. I didn't have to hover over this person and tell them how to do what to do. And it turned out fine. And I worked myself up over that. I mean, you think you got issues. So, so how do I see myself in this situation? What can I change in terms of my self-image or who I think I am to have a different experience? And the thoughts lead to the feelings lead to the words and actions. So I have to change the thoughts, the perceptions, the ideas that I have.
Okay. Thoughts, feelings, actions. Okay.
Well, it's not even, it's just, how do I see myself? Who do I think I am in relation to these other people, in relation to the situation? And is that true? Because remember, a lot of these ideas that we have about ourselves are based on our past often traumatic experiences when we were kids, and we never question those ideas about ourselves, and yet they run our lives, and they're often very negative. So when I notice, okay, I don't think I can handle this person being in my house, is that really true? Now, it may have been true of me as a 5-year-old, but I'm not 5 years old anymore. I know how to deal with people. I know how to take care of myself. I know how to set boundaries. I know how to, to have a relationship with people. But I'm still stuck in that idea. I still think, it's the default, the knee jerk is I still think I'm that little kid. I'm not even aware of it. It's not like I walk around saying, gee, I'm 5 years old today, but I act and react as if that's how I see myself.
No, I understand. I definitely understand. That's how I felt. I felt very childish. I felt like a child.
Perfect. So be aware of that. When am I regressing? Again, in chapter 3, I talked about regression. When am I acting and feeling like a little kid? Yeah. Because chances are pretty good I'm seeing myself as a little kid. And is that really true? I'm not 5 years old anymore. I can take care of myself. I do know how to have, functional relationships with people. I do know how to, and I do know how to take care of myself if things don't work out. I mean, I always try to remind myself if I'm in a difficult situation with difficult people, I always try to remind myself, heck, if it gets really bad, now you're going to be on an island, so you may not have this option. But if it gets really bad, I can just get in my car and drive away.
Right. But I think the person that's going to give me a hard time is going to be me, not anybody else. That's what I think I'm getting at this time. And this is what I've got to work on.
So you know the problem.
Yep.
And you know the solution.
Kind of. Okay.
And it is, you got to look at it this way. You don't have to. Actually, this might be a bad analogy, but imagine you just lost 30 pounds and you're trying on new clothes, or you're trying on the old clothes, and the old clothes really don't fit and they don't feel comfortable, but you're looking at these new clothes and it's like, is that really who I am? It could be uncomfortable to put on new clothes, even if they are smaller size or whatever. Again, that's just that probably terrible analogy.
I know what you're saying. No, I know what you're saying.
You're trying on a new way of being in the world, and it could be a little uncomfortable.
Right.
And you're letting go an old way of being that could definitely be uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right, great work, Barb.
All right, sorry to take up so much time.
No, it's all right. Don't apologize. And we're going to talk about that tonight too. About compulsive.
Don't apologize. Okay. All right.
All right, you're doing great work. Can't wait to hear about the weekend. Anybody else want to chime in, say hello, share a victory?
Hi, hello everybody. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for that. My internet is a little bit choppy, so I won't talk long, but I will say that I am having multiple victories, not just one, but multiple, and I'll hopefully share later as it applies to whatever you're going to say tonight. And I'm just really glad to be here and not miss a week. That's my biggest victory. I'm not missing one workshop. Thanks again. Okay, love you guys. Bye.
All right, great. Thank you, Dee Dee. Yeah, guys, it was 1 year ago tonight that I started the workshops. So it's been 52 weeks or 50 weeks, however long that is. I haven't missed a week. So I'm actually really excited about that. Anybody else want to say hi, share victory, celebration?
Yes. I just want to say this about that. Woohoo!
Thank you, Cynthia. I'll give myself a woohoo. Woohoo! 50 weeks, 52 weeks. I guess it is 52 weeks. So, and there have been a lot of weeks that I wasn't sure I was going to make it and, didn't want to make it and all that. So I want to acknowledge myself for that. Good job, Peter. All right. So let's jump in. So we're still talking about forgiveness. We have 2 more weeks. We're going to finish it up on the 28th. So we have tonight, next week, and the week after. And we will be done with the book. For this go-round, definitely going to take August off, and then I'll let you guys know what we're going to do in the fall. So we're still talking about forgiveness. We're going to listen to the excerpt from the audiobook. It's about 8.5 minutes. And when we come back, we'll do our topic discussion.
You don't have to apologize for that. Another thought on the topic of making an apology or amends is how they are received by the other person. In my experience, I usually get one of three responses. 1, thanks so much, I really appreciate that. 2, oh, you don't have to apologize, that was nothing. Or, I don't even remember that. Or 3, go F yourself, I'm not interested in your apologies. The main thing to keep in mind is that not everyone is going to appreciate or acknowledge an apology. Our amends may not be considered warranted or even welcomed by the other person. Moreover, the varied nature of these responses produces a curious and somewhat counterintuitive result. As a practical matter, we make amends for ourselves and not for the other person. As I mentioned in Chapter 6, everything we do for ourselves. It turns out apologizing or making an amends is no exception. The primary reason for this is, as I just laid out, we have absolutely no control over how our amends or apology is received. We'll talk about the case where it's actually unwelcomed in a moment. But even in case number 2, the other person may not value our attempts to apologize. Thus, it must be something we do for ourselves since they haven't asked for it. To whom and for what we apologize becomes a statement of who we think we are or who we want to be in that situation. I mentioned earlier that taking responsibility can free us from the feelings of guilt we often experience when we've harmed someone. I also mentioned how not taking responsibility can exacerbate our negative feelings about ourselves and actually lessen our self-esteem. Thus, another reason making an amends is something we do for ourselves is that it has the potential to free us from our guilt. Recall that in Chapter 2 I said guilt is just another word for self-hatred. Yet we can't make an amends for that reason. It has to be a genuine attempt to right a wrong we have committed. Otherwise, we may end up inflicting even more harm upon the other person. We can't try to force an apology on someone who may not want it just so we can feel better. The minute it becomes clear our amends is unwelcomed, we need to abandon any further attempts or action associated with it. Likewise, apologizing to impress someone or because we want them to like us is to use the amends process selfishly, and selfishness almost always produces more harm than good. Finally, as people familiar with the 12 steps know, Step 9 suggests we make direct amends to the people we have harmed, except when to do so would injure them or others. Thus, making an unwelcomed or unwanted amends should be avoided as potentially injuring that person. We should also be cognizant of the effects our responsibility taking will have on other people. A common example might be admitting infidelity within the scope of a marriage or other intimate relationship. This admission to your own spouse or partner could eventually come back to harm the person you are having the affair with and/or their family. In these types of situations, it's always helpful to seek counsel from others before taking it upon yourself to apologize or make an amends. Forgiveness as a decision. Forgiveness is a conscious choice to not take things personally, to let go of anger, rage, and resentments, to accept rather than judge, and so on. We decide to overlook someone else's or our own mistakes and imperfections. As we've already discussed, all true decisions are arbitrary vis-a-vis the external world. They're made irrespective of outer circumstances or conditions and are not dependent on what another person is doing or not doing. Yet we also said all true decisions are not at all arbitrary when it comes to our internal world. They're an expression of who we think we are and who we want to be in our lives. With respect to a decision to forgive, we choose to see ourselves in a way that says no one and nothing has the power to hurt us. We stop seeing ourselves as victims and other people as victimizers. We may choose to hold other people accountable for their actions, but we do it without anger or vengeance. As we stated in the last chapter, our ultimate goal in this work is to undo the ego. Forgiveness is the best way to do that. The ego never turns the other cheek or lets anyone off the hook. It knows nothing of compassion and is addicted to revenge, retaliation, and justified anger. We overcome the ego by consciously and deliberately choosing to release our perpetrators and love our enemies. We choose to protect ourselves without rage, resentment, or undue harm to others. As such, each decision to forgive represents a conscious choice to express love rather than fear. Boring. The ongoing choice to forgive, especially in close personal relationships, can present challenges. Even if we can get beyond the ego's resistance to the idea, the following 3 things may undermine our efforts to forgive another person and might even eventually make the initial situation worse. 1. No more drama. The end result of both taking responsibility and forgiving others is that life has the potential to become a lot more boring. Much of the drama we experience on a daily basis is eliminated when we stop blaming others for how we feel. If I truly forgive you, the emotional charge that accompanies the horror and utter disbelief you could treat me this way is gone. For many, conflict and drama are the primary ways we interact with others. The drama can have an addictive quality. Our bodies may come to crave the rush of chemicals we feel when we think we have to defend ourselves or that we've been hurt or slighted. Thus, the addictive nature of the drama can act as an impediment to sticking with our decision to forgive. We may let them off the hook for a while, but eventually, the unconscious craving for the emotional high of anger and victimization may send us back to our old ways of interacting with that person. 2. The loss of our sense of identity. In Chapter 4, we discussed what can happen when we let go of a part of our self-image that we hold dear. Practicing forgiveness requires that we give up our idea about ourselves as victims. This can result in a very strong and often unconscious discomfort around losing a part of our personal identity. For example, if I'm someone who has used anger for the last 40 years to get my way with other people, when I give that up in the name of forgiveness, I could find myself in a bit of a bind. I've not only lost an identity which says I'm an angry person, but now I also need to figure out a new way to relate to people. A loss of identity can be so terrifying to our ego that there may be a strong and immediate pull to revert back to our prior ways. 3. Expecting others to change now that we've forgiven them. I tend to do this a lot. I think because I've let someone off the hook, they should now be different. The truth is, they may continue to do things that harm or annoy me. Moreover, as I'll mention below, in most cases, the person we're forgiving doesn't even know that they've been forgiven. Thus, it's kind of crazy to think that by forgiving them, they're now going to magically change who they are in relation to us. If someone continues to act in harmful or inappropriate ways, it's up to us to take care of ourselves. This may include removing ourselves from the situation or them from our lives. But expecting anyone to be different than who they are right now, whether because we think we've forgiven them or otherwise, does not serve us. There's a simple way to know if we've actually forgiven someone. Are we still upset by that person? There have been many times when I thought I had forgiven another person or situation, only to find out that when I encountered them in the future, I was still upset. The opposite is also true. When I've truly forgiven, I no longer give up my peace or emotional well-being in the face of what's happening outside of me. A good example is I'm rarely upset when my current neighbors do something that in the past would have set me off. When I first noticed this, it was quite startling. In a couple of cases, I actually tried to be angry at them for what they were doing, but I couldn't. This is despite the fact that the exact same behavior in the past would have resulted in me having a meltdown. Until someone experiences this for themselves, it's kind of hard to describe. But for me at least, this is the whole point of forgiveness. To no longer sacrifice my own peace of mind because of what someone else is saying or doing.
All right, so there's the reading for tonight. Lots of stuff in there to cover, so we're going to jump in again. First, we're running a little bit behind, actually a lot of it. So you don't have to apologize for that. So what I'm getting at here, which I recognized just a few minutes ago, I probably could have made a little clearer, and I may just clarify this before I finalize the second edition, which will be very soon. So making an amends, I talked about this a little bit in chapter 3 when we talked about taking responsibility. Taking responsibility is the core of, or chapter 2, taking responsibility. Taking responsibility is the core, at the core of our getting our power back and no longer being victims, giving our power away and reacting and interacting with other people from a place of powerlessness. But taking responsibility by making an amends is also part of the self-forgiveness process. So that's why it's in this chapter, and I probably want to clarify that a little bit, because by taking responsibility, by making things right when I've done something wrong, it's part of the way that I forgive myself. It frees me of the guilt that I feel. I often feel guilty, bad, when I've done something that's harmful to myself or another person. So by taking responsibility for that, I'm undoing the guilt. And when I undo the guilt, I'm opening the door to forgiveness, to me forgiving myself for what I did or didn't do. So that's kind of why it's in here. So this issue of how other people respond to our amends, I generally, and I think this is true, this comes from my experience in 12-step programs, 3 different 12-step programs, 22 years. When I've made an amends as part of step 8 and step 9, I typically get one of 3 responses. The first one is, thank you so much. I really appreciate that you acknowledge that. I accept your apology. It's great. Number 2 is, oh, you don't have to apologize for that. That was nothing. Half the time they would say, I don't even remember that. I don't know why you're apologizing. And then the third response is, go F yourself. I'm not interested in your apologies. And what this leads me to conclude is that I'm making an amends for myself. As I just said, it's part of the self-forgiveness process. It's part of the process of me taking responsibility. I have found that in my own life, when I've done something harmful to somebody else, it's an act of self-love to take responsibility for that, to make things right. Because it frees me from the guilt. It frees me from the blow to my self-image, which says I'm a bad person or whatever. So taking responsibility is an act of self-love. And so the way I look at it, and I realize everybody may not see it the same way, is that in essence, I'm making the amends for myself because I have 2 things. 1, I have no control over how it's received by the other person. And number 2, it's an act of self-love for me, something I'm doing for me. It's good for me. Now, again, if the other person is open to it, it can literally mend the relationship, certainly promote peace and harmony in the relationship. But the other person may not, they may not think it's necessary for me to apologize, and they may not be open or willing to hear my apology. All right, so I'm putting that in this chapter for that reason. I don't want to spend a lot more time on it, but I wanted to include that and bring it to your attention. All right, so a decision to forgive. So like every choice and every decision we make, a decision to forgive is an expression of who we think we are or who we want to be, either in our lives or in that situation in particular. So do I want to be somebody who is loving, who is tolerant, who is compassionate, who is understanding, who is forgiving? So if I make the choice to forgive, it's an expression of who I want to be in that situation. So I'm not doing that for the other person. I'm doing that for me. So the decision to forgive is something else that I'm doing for myself. We choose to see ourselves in a way that says no one and nothing has the power to hurt us. Now, this is really important. Again, this is a statement. When I choose to forgive somebody, I'm making a statement saying, you don't have the power to hurt me. I no longer give you that power. Now, last week we talked about the difference between hurt and harm. Okay, and I will say again, we're not making excuses for somebody else's bad behavior. We're not giving people, we're not holding them accountable for their neglect, for their abuse, for their inappropriate behavior. And it is true that people can harm us, just like it's true that we can harm other people. But we still don't have to be victims. I still don't have to see myself as a victim to take care of myself in that situation. I don't have to give my power away. I don't have to blame somebody else for how I feel. I can hold them accountable for their inappropriate, harmful behavior, and I can still be in a place of forgiveness, in a place of peace, in a place of compassion, in a place of understanding. And that's a decision, a choice that I make for me because it's good for me. All right. So we stop seeing ourselves as victims and other people as victimizers. So that's the other thing. When I change how I see myself, I change how I see other people. And most of my life, because I saw myself as a victim, that meant I had to see other people as victimizers. All right. We may choose to hold the other person accountable for their actions, but we do it without anger or vengeance. All right. So this is also really important. You know, a lot of times in my own life, and I see this in other people, we see anger, we see vengeance, we see revenge, retaliation, physical violence. We see that as justified because of what the other person did to us. We're justified in acting and reacting. Now, again, I'm not saying that we don't take care of ourselves. I'm not saying that we don't defend ourselves if that's appropriate. I'm not saying that we don't use force if that's appropriate. But I can use force and still not be angry. I can use force and still not be vengeful and seeking retaliation and wanting to hurt somebody because I think they hurt me. So that's the difference. And again, maybe it's not a big deal for you guys, but I can see in my own life, I always felt justified in hurting somebody because I thought they hurt me. And maybe they actually did hurt me, but I could still take care of myself without wanting to hurt them, without wanting to get back at them, without feeling justified in retaliation and revenge. And, you know, again, I see this in other people. I see this in between nations, between races. So I'm suggesting that we can take care of ourselves. We can even use force if necessary without it being about anger, without it being about retaliation, revenge, attack, justified anger, and all of that. Now, this came up in my own life and actually continues to come up. Again, I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on this because we've talked about it. In fact, we talked about this, I think it was last week or the week before. So when I forgive somebody, I have to be conscious, I have to be aware that these three things that I'm about to list can make that ongoing decision to forgive that other person difficult and could undermine that decision. All right, so the first one is this idea of no more drama. Now, I noticed that in my own life, and this is one of the measures of my recovery and 12-step programs, but also kind of a gauge of where I'm at in my relationships with certain people. I look at the amount of drama that I have in those relationships, in those situations. And I notice that, thankfully, in many situations, my life is a lot more boring than it used to be. I used to have a lot of drama in the way I interacted with certain people or in certain situations. It could just be, you know, dealing with a problem on my computer. You know, for many years, when I was frustrated with something on my computer, all this drama, and I would call up tech support, you know, call up the computer company and be unkind to the tech support people, just create all this drama, all this chaos. And so my suggestion is that when I start forgiving, and I notice this in my own life, that means I can no longer, you know, call up tech support and be a dick, you know, be unkind, you know, be a victim and try to make somebody wrong for how I'm feeling. The problem is there, and Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza talks a lot about this, and I've mentioned this a few times already. When we experience drama, we release chemicals in our body, adrenaline, cortisol, you know, these hormones, these neurotransmitters get released in response to our perception of the drama, a perception of we have to defend ourselves, we have to fight. It's the fight or flight response. Those chemicals create reactions in our body, and we become addicted to that. It's like a drug addiction. It's like any other addiction. We get addicted to feeling that hit of adrenaline, that chemical neurotransmitter response to, how could you treat me this way? How could you do this to me? And when we stop reacting that way, we literally can have a craving without even being aware of it, having a craving in our body where the body is actually calling out for another hit. Give me another hit of that feeling like a victim. Give me another dose of adrenaline. You know, it could be subtle. Maybe it's not so subtle, but I've noticed this in myself, and I have to be aware of that. So that addiction can pull me back to forget about forgiveness. I'm not going to forgive you because you're doing this to me and now I'm justified. But the reason I feel that way is because of this addiction to the reaction, the chemical reactions in the body from feeling victimized, unfairly treated, all of that. Next is what I was talking about earlier, the loss of our sense of identity. So again, the example I use in the book is if I've related to somebody for 40 years with anger and judgment and control and manipulation, when I forgive them, see, this is why forgiveness is a radical way to live. It means letting go of all of that stuff. I'm no longer judging them. I'm no longer making them wrong. I'm no longer interacting with them through anger or control or whatever it is. I have to find a new way. And I have a sense of identity. If I'm no longer that angry guy or that judgmental person, who am I? And it could be specific relationships with specific people, specific situations, or just my life in general. Who would I be without my anger? Who would I be without judgment? Who would I be without, trying to control people or manipulate people or feeling like a victim? When I let all of that go during the process of forgiveness, because remember, forgiveness means I'm no longer going to make you wrong. I'm no longer going to judge you. I'm not going to attack you. I'm not going to act with justified anger, revenge, and all of that. I still take care of myself. I still set boundaries. I can still use force if necessary. But as much as possible, I'm doing that from a place of love, compassion, understanding, rather than anger, victimization, attack, revenge, and all of that. So who would I be if I'm not that guy anymore? Who am I? All right. And it's that lack of that sense of identity is very threatening to the ego. So the whole point is it's very easy to slip back into the old ways. Forget about forgiveness. I'm justified in attacking you because of what you did to me. We lose that sense of who we are, and it can be frightening, certainly uncomfortable. So it's very easy to slip back into those old patterns. All right, and then this last one, expecting other people to change now that we've forgiven them. Again, I do this a lot in certain situations with certain people. And as we're going to talk about next week, most of the time, in fact, almost all the time when we're forgiving somebody else, they don't even know that we're doing it. They don't even know that they're being forgiven. Because, and we talked about this in chapter 6, would you rather be right or happy? Everybody thinks they're right. They may not think that what they've done is wrong. And so when we go to them and say, well, I'm forgiving you because you acted like a jerk, they may not agree with that. And that could only make things worse. So forgiveness is something we do, we'll find this out next week, is something we do by ourselves, for ourselves. Forgiveness is something I do for myself. Started off this chapter by listing some of the ways that forgiveness is good for us. Letting go of our anger can help our health, blood pressure. There's a lot of research now that says angry people have more heart attacks. And then by forgiving somebody else and not retaliating, I'm not inviting them to retaliate against me, and we don't have physical violence and all of that. So forgiveness is something that I do for myself. It's good for me. But the point is, the other person shouldn't even really know that we're forgiving them. So me expecting somebody to change because in my own mind I've forgiven them, that's a very easy way for me to slip back into the old ways of reacting to them. It happened to me about an hour ago. And the good news is I was aware of it. And I was able to not react the way I would have in the past. All right. So we're going to talk more about all this next week, but I just want you to be aware that, it could undermine a choice, a decision to forgive because, well, I forgave them and yet they're still being a jerk. Now, again, if somebody is being inappropriate, it's our job to take care of ourselves in that situation, which means having boundaries. It may mean removing ourselves from that situation. It may mean removing them from our lives, whatever we need to do to take care of ourselves. But making them wrong for us not taking care of ourselves doesn't serve us. And it's not true. It's my job to take care of myself in those situations. So expecting them to be different because I think I've forgiven them creates a lot of problems. All right, and now this is actually the assignment for tonight. This is to kind of bring our awareness to our awareness, what's going on. And I say there's a simple way to know if we've actually forgiven someone or something. And that question is, are we still upset by that person or that situation? Now, again, this is not to make ourselves wrong. If I noticed, like an hour ago, I noticed I was a little bit upset by what somebody else was doing, and I thought I had forgiven them, it's not to beat myself up. It's not to make myself wrong, but it is to bring to my awareness, oh, so I haven't really forgiven them because I'm still having that negative reaction. And remember, the choice to forgive, it's a decision, it's a choice that I make as an expression of who I want to be in my life, who I want to be in that situation. And as I say here, the whole point of forgiveness is we no longer sacrifice our own peace of mind because of what someone else is being, doing, or saying. I can still take care of myself without giving up my peace of mind, without sacrificing who I want to be in my life, without giving my power away. This is the key. It's take care of myself without giving my power away, without reacting emotionally in a negative way that hurts myself and potentially hurts myself and others. All right. So are we still upset by that person or situation? It's simply an exercise in awareness. It's like, oh, okay, so I haven't actually forgiven them because I'm still reacting negatively. Now, do I need to set another boundary with that person? Do I need to set another boundary? Do I need to change my behavior so I will no longer be in harm's way with them? But that's just me taking responsibility for my life. The minute I'm upset with another person because of who they're being, the only thing that tells me is I haven't done what I needed to do to take care of myself in that situation. All right, and so again, the assignment for tonight, how do you actually know if you've forgiven someone? Maybe you agree, maybe you have a different way of knowing if you've forgiven someone, maybe you're you're not really interested in forgiving anyone anyway, so it doesn't matter. But if you do want to forgive someone, how do you know if you've actually forgiven them? All right, I'm going to play the song. 5-minute break. I know we're way over time, but we're going to do 5 minutes. We'll come back and we'll do some Q&A and discussion. All right, we're back. All right, so how do you know if you've actually forgiven someone? Or what about, we can talk about forgiveness is something we do for ourselves, or making an amends is something that we do for ourselves, not for the other person. It's not to say that it couldn't benefit the other person, but everything we do for ourselves, in my opinion. So anybody want to chime in on any of these topics or any of the general discussion that we had tonight, or forgiveness in general? Sounds like Dee Dee.
Hey, Peter. Hey, everybody. Okay, the thought that I had is, hell no, I'm not forgiving anybody. I don't want to forgive. Because I don't want to be vulnerable again. And I think if I let go and forgive, then that same shit's going to happen to me again and again and again. So until you and I have a little bit more togetherness, Peter, and I really get this, there's some stuff that I'm just not going to forgive. Now, that being said, I totally get that it's for me, and this whole feeling of being upset about what happened or history or whatever it was, that's only hurting me and making me less of the person that I really am and want to be. And I recognize that I'm on that trajectory of, well, I'm on my way. I'm going to get there. I'm just not there yet. So I'll keep coming back. And what else do I want to say about that? This whole, I know I'm changing because I recognize this thing about, what was it? It was said earlier. It's like, I heard it. I get to choose how I show up no matter what anybody else is doing. And it just turns out that there's this one personality that I get to work with intimately right now. And she, as it turns out, I'm not the only one that's negatively impacted by her unusual, I'm just going to call it dysfunctional behavior. So the good news is I'm not alone. And the other good news is I don't have to get all puffed up, with my sword out, because I'm afraid of this person. I get to just say, okay, go hang, to myself, of course, as I turn and walk out the door, go hang yourself. I'm not going with you, kind of like that. So it's not a beautiful, we love each other hugging situation yet. And it is safe for me to continue to do the work that I need to do to support my clients in a very, 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 very precious, highly stressful, sacred container situation. And they need me to be fully grounded and not reactive to anything that I'm faced with. So thank you. I'm in it to win it. Thanks, Peter. Pass.
All right, great. So that's great, Dee Dee. So I want to thank you for your honesty. Hell no, I'm not ready to forgive, but that's actually the program. I've said this a couple of times. It doesn't make any sense to forgive if we're not in a place to take care of ourselves. If we don't know how to take care of ourselves, we don't feel comfortable, don't have the skills or whatever it is. So, because that would actually be putting ourselves in harm's way again. So this is not forgiveness at any cost. This is not forgiveness because we're goody-goodies or because God wants us to forgive or any of that. It's when we're ready and when we know how to take care of ourselves. Now, this is what I would say next. So that's great. Totally get it. And then the next thing I would say is it's two different things. And this is for me to hear. Maybe it's helpful for you or other people. Forgiving is over here. And taking care of myself is over here. And they don't have to be mutually exclusive. It's kind of what I was just saying. So forgiving someone doesn't mean I give up my right to take care of myself. In fact, that comes first. So I can take care of myself and forgive or not forgive, but they don't have to be maybe I'm not articulating this the way I want to. In a way, it's two different things, you know? So the decision to forgive comes later. And then, but the first thing I got to do is make sure I know how to take care of myself and not put myself in harm's way. And if, you know, quote unquote, forgiving somebody, you know, again, I mean, we do forgiveness in our own heart and our own mind, but it doesn't mean we stop taking care of ourselves. So think about that. You know, we can forgive other people and still have boundaries. We can forgive other people and not put ourselves in harm's way. We can forgive other people and never see them again. We can still do forgiveness because it's an inside job. It's something that we do by ourselves, for ourselves, which again, we're going to talk more about that next week. So what I'm saying is one doesn't have to go, you know, we don't have to give up. Forgiving somebody doesn't mean we give up our right to take care of ourselves. All right, great. You want to say anything else, Didi? You're good.
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. And, you know, I look forward to the time when I'm just not affected by my past or anybody's strange behavior might be, because I know who I am and why I'm here.
Well, and that's true power. You know, when I'm unaffected by somebody else's reactions, behavior, whatever, you know, that's true power, because I'm in that moment, I'm creating my life rather than reacting to somebody else's life.
And I learned it here. I learned it here. Be bigger today.
I'm learning it here too. So that confronts me on a daily basis. You know, am I going to react to somebody else, or am I going to create who I want to be in that moment? And look at it as they're just giving me an opportunity to exercise my true power and be who I want to be in that situation. You know, and I'm not always grateful for that opportunity. All right, good. Anybody else want to chime in on our topics for tonight? Got a few more minutes. Anybody want to talk about how you know if you've forgiven somebody, or forgiveness is something we do for ourselves? Barb?
And I was doing something. No, just chime in on, remember what I told you, I was really hurt by my boss and the person that I work with too. And that was very painful. And then I found out, okay, what was happening is that I wasn't forgiving them. So, you know, I'll just pass this on. I don't know if it's right or wrong. You know, it just seems to have, time has just, I don't know, you know, has it made it better? Did I forgive? You know, I don't know. I mean, I know I had to forgive them to move on and, you know, to not feel, but I think it's still there. So
well, again, it's good to know. That's all.
Okay.
It's just information.
Yeah.
I haven't completely forgiven them.
No, I haven't. Just like Dee Dee said, oh, no, way. You know, it's not that I don't want to. I just haven't. I mean, I think the hurt was so deep that, you know, it's going to take, I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know if it's time. I don't know if it's circumstances. I don't know what it, you know, I guess that's what true forgiveness is. We will, you know, if you want to get into spiritual, biblical stuff, honestly, I mean, I guess true forgiveness is, yeah, I don't know. There's a miracle there, right? With true forgiveness. Like, say somebody really, you know, if you go back in time and somebody did those awful things, and then as Jesus will put their hands on and just say, I forgive you. And I think he really meant it. I think that takes a lot of work. It'll get there.
So Course in Miracles kind of loosely defines a miracle as a shift in perception.
All right, I got to remember
So
that.
it's the same situation, same people, and I see it differently. And that is kind of a miracle. Now, it could be I see myself differently, because remember, people don't have the power to hurt me unless I give them that power. So,
but I think I would rather say I would like to see that situation or see them differently. Remember, I said I'm working on myself and I've been having a hard time. Everything had to do with myself. but the forgiveness part of that particular situation, okay, I'd like to see them differently. Not the people that could hurt me. Right.
Well, and so, but to see other people differently, I have to see myself differently first.
Okay. All right. Okay.
When I change how I see myself, I change how I see the world.
So I'm supposed to say I'm not receptive to being hurt.
I have a choice.
Okay.
I get to decide. And am I going to give my power away? Am I going to feel bad because of what somebody else said or did?
Yeah, and it's in the past. So now I can take another step with you and say, yeah, I think I did forgive them then. Okay. Because it's over. It's gone. I don't want to have anything to do with it anymore. I feel good.
So then this comes up in 2 weeks. So, okay, you're forgiven them. Now, can you forgive yourself?
Okay.
Because we have a part. We talked about this last week. What was my part in this? So every time I'm in a difficult situation, I have a part in that. Doesn't say what they did was right or what they did was good or anything like that. And, I have a part. I'm responsible for, putting myself in a situation where I could potentially be harmed by somebody else. Now, again, it's not to make myself wrong, not to beat myself up. We're not responsible for somebody else's bad behavior. We don't always know, I know what you talked about. You didn't know what was coming, and all of that. So this is not in any way to make us wrong, but to recognize that nobody has the power to hurt me unless I give them that power. And if I'm feeling bad about myself because of what somebody else said or did, can I forgive myself for letting somebody else hurt me?
Okay, there you go. All right, touche. Okay.
And if I'm feeling uncomfortable, if I'm worried about it, maybe the fear is I'm going to let them hurt me again.
Right.
Maybe the fear is not that they're going to hurt me or say something harmful or hurtful, but I'm not going to be able to take care of myself. I'm not going to be able to set a boundary. I'm not going to be able, whatever. Maybe I
think that's where my anxiety is coming from. That's where my fear is coming from. It's going to happen again. Okay.
It's going to happen again, and I won't be able to handle it.
Oh.
See, if it's going to happen again and I can handle it, there's no fear.
Right.
Who do I think I am? How do I see myself in that situation? The situation is never the problem. The problem is always and only how I see myself in that situation. So if I'm feeling anxious about it happening again, it's not because it's happening again. It's because I feel anxious because I don't think I can handle it. Which is good news because I get to decide how I see myself. I often cannot change the external situation, but I can always change how I see myself in that situation. If it gets really bad, I can just get in my car and drive away.
Right. Yes, I could.
That's me changing how I see myself in that situation. And so now I'm not so worried. I'm not so concerned. I can stand up for myself. I know how to take care of myself. I can, not let other people's opinion of me be more important than my opinion of myself. I did that most of my life. And it was what I thought they thought of me. It wasn't what they actually thought of me. It's what I thought they thought of me was more important than what I thought of myself. Mm. But it really was what I thought of myself. I was just projecting my own self-loathing, my own feeling bad about myself. I was projecting that onto other people. So when they acted a certain way, it was like, how could you say that about me? But it was really my own thoughts about myself. That's why it hurt. If I love myself, if I think I'm great, if I think I'm wonderful, nobody can hurt me. Doesn't matter what you say. Now, you may have good feedback. I may need to readjust how I'm doing, what I'm doing, or whatever, but I don't have to feel bad about myself.
Okay.
Learning to love myself, learning to be my own best friend instead of my own worst enemy. In those situations, if somebody says something harmful or hurtful or inappropriate, I don't take it personally. Tell my niece, my 14-year-old, 15-year-old niece, for 8 years, I told her, if somebody says something mean about you, they're really talking about themselves. Healthy people don't have to hurt other people to feel okay. There's something wrong with that person. If they have to try to hurt me, remember 2 weeks ago, Neil Donald Walsh in, I think it's Tomorrow's God. What hurts you so much that you feel you have to hurt me to heal it? Hurt people hurt people. If somebody's attacking me, they've got to feel some level of insecurity, anxiety, fear, whatever. They got a problem if they have to attack me.
Okay. Yep.
And
I got to remember that.
And can I, if I choose to, again, I don't have to put myself in harm's way. It's not my job to fix somebody. It's not my job to make it okay for them. And can I have some compassion and say, wow, you're attacking me. You must be really, I don't say this out loud. This is what's going on. They're attacking me. They must be really afraid. Is there something I can do to help them? That's radical. That's a radical way to live. And that's why I started out this chapter saying forgiveness is a radical way to live. But I got to know how to take care of myself. I got to know how to feel good about myself no matter what. I got to know how to keep myself out of harm's way before I can even think about that. And then ultimately, can I forgive? This was a in Codependence Anonymous, at the end of the 12-step meeting every week, we would say affirmations. We'd go around, pass around a sheet. Everybody would read one affirmation. And there was one affirmation, I said it earlier. I forgive myself for allowing other people to hurt me because I didn't know. I didn't know how to take care of myself. I didn't know, I felt bad about myself. And so, I just assumed that what they were saying was true because nobody ever taught me how to feel good about myself or whatever.
All right. I got it. Okay. Very helpful. Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Barb. Anybody else? All right. 3.5 minutes. Going to play the song one more time. We come back. We will wrap it up. All right, guys. So that's it for this week. 2 more weeks to go. Anybody want to say anything before we wrap it up? Dee Dee?
Hey, Joe Dispenza is having 4 free videos starting tomorrow off of a Hay House program, just a FYI.
Well, yeah, Joe Dispenza, I actually did his week-long, it was a week-long workshop at Niagara Falls in about 1.5 years ago. It's intense. He's an intense guy. So, we were meditating for like 8 hours a day, and it was really intense stuff. We're getting up at 4 o'clock. We had to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to show up at the convention center at 4 a.m. to meditate for 4 hours, and the whole, do the processes and all that. It was real. And it was a week of that. Yeah.
Makes you a better man.
Well, I learned a lot. And I'm glad I did it. I'm not sure I would do it again, though. But yeah, he's great. His stuff is great. And Bob Proctor, that movie, if you haven't seen it, that movie, The Secret, it came out in, I think it was 2006. That movie introduced the law of attraction to a lot of people. Now, there was some flack, there was some pushback against it, even from some of the people who were in it. They felt like maybe it was oversimplified or whatever. I'll let you decide for yourselves. But I do remember Bob Proctor in there, and I didn't really know who he was at the time. And so when I came across his seminar this week, it kind of clicked. So, he's got another take on it that I found very helpful. Look, it's either, we can either invest our time and energy in something that's going to move us forward in one way or another, or, or not. But I like to recommend things that I find value in. So let me know what you think about it. Barb, you want to say something? Or are you good?
No, I'm good.
All right. Can't wait to hear about the trip to Block Island next week.
Okay.
You're all about it. I'm sure it's going to be great.
I'm sure it's going to be great. It's rain. Pray for no rain.
All right. We'll pray
Do
for
a
no
rain
rain.
dance. Okay.
All right, guys. So have a
Good
great
night.
week. Remember, be bigger than you think you are today and every day. And I'll see you guys next week.
All right. Thank you, Peter. Good night.
Good night.